follow along online. Okay, so yeah, feel free to follow along online if you can see that okay. If not, there would have been an email out the other day where you can follow along on there if you so choose. So I'll get started here. A little slow. Okay, so I'll go over the agenda quickly. So the first part of this presentation slide deck has the utility budget, so the waste collection, water, and sewer. Now, that's kind of a bit old news. We've already passed the utility rates. So I'm not going to spend any time going over this section, but I wanted to ensure that you had the information, you had the budgets, you had the data. And if you have any questions about any of those, I'll happily take those once we get started. After that, I'll go through the operations budget. And so this is all new material. Go over the draft rates and fees. So that's kind of tax rates. And then go through reserve contribution, reserve balances, and then finally we'll end up going through the capital plan. Now, all of this is a draft. Nothing's decided. The purpose of this meeting is to present the information that we have so far and then make adjustments as we see fit once we go through the information. So in regards to, as mentioned, the garbage collection, water utility, and sewer utility, again, I wasn't going to go through the material, but before I completely skip over those, does anybody have any questions if you reviewed the material in advance? Or does anybody have any general questions about the utility tax rates or sorry, the utility fees or anything presented or contained in the slide deck?
I see one head, no. Okay, we'll carry on.
Okay, we'll carry on. So we'll flip to the operating budget draft. Just flip through notes here. Okay, and so a bit of the format for this, there'll be several slides. I'm going to start with the expenses and talk about those. I'm going to go through revenue after, and then we'll put the entire budget on the screen. I'll point out a few things on there. So starting with expenses, I'm not necessarily going to go through every service that we provide. As you can see just visually, many of those services really don't have a change in the budget. They're pretty much flat between this year and last. I'm really going to go over the big drivers or the big changes between this year's budget and last year's budget. But I'll take questions on anything if you have any questions. Now, how to read this chart, I'll just kind of go over it quickly. The blue bars kind of on the left-hand side are the 2025 budget, so last year's budget. The green bars are the 2026 budget, so this current budget that's in draft and we're presenting today. And then the red little bars there are what we're projected to end up with in 2025. So 2025 projected expenses. Now, we don't have audited financial statements yet. We're just doing the financial statements now. Change, but these are just our projections to date. So if we kind of start off on the far left-hand side, general government. As you can see, last year's budget, 2025, was about $567,000, and we've increased the budget for 2026 to about $602,000. So this is one of the larger budget increases. The main drivers on this one are just kind of general inflation increases, and that includes wages for staff, wages for administrative staff. We budgeted an increase along the lines of CPI index for their increase this year. That's the first one. And then the second one is IT and software support. Prices or costs have gone up significantly. So that's budgeted in there as well. So I believe from the wages perspective for general government, it's about $19,000 more than we budgeted last year. And the IT service is about $14,000 more than we budgeted for last year. And that makes up the majority of the increase in general government. Moving on, protective services, as you can see, that's the next set of bars there. As you can see, they're relatively flat. We actually decreased the protective services budget. We just got a little bit of wiggle room based on historic values, so we actually decreased that budget. Transportation services, you can see a large decrease in this budget. And we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I'll give you some insight on what it was. So the biggest driving factor is a decrease in snow clearing and winter roads budget. So we decreased that by 35,000, which is quite significant. And we did this based on trending data. So when I looked at, the last 3 years, so 2023, we actually had budgeted 106,000 in the snow clearing budget. We only used 54,000 in that year. In 2024, I decreased the budget to 94,000. We only used about 60,000. In 2025, so last year, we kept the budget the same at about 95,000, and we only used about 33,000. So, and I know last year was 2025 was an abnormally low snow year, but when I look at the most we've ever spent in the last 3 years was around 60,000. So I put the budget to that $60,000. So, I mean, you could ask, well, what happens if we have a big snow year? Could happen. It's unpredictable. And let's say we budget 60,000 and we end up going over budget and spending 75,000. That's okay. In the last 3 years alone, we've put away about $140,000 of surplus because we've spent under budget. So if we go over budget slightly, say by 10-15 grand in 2026, that's okay. We'll just draw some of that surplus down. But I'm confident that that $60,000-ish mark is probably what we should be for snow clearing. Again, there might be some exceptional years, but we kind of budget for average. It's not budget for exceptional years.
Can I ask where in what reserve that would go under them?
The surplus?
For transportation.
Yep, there's no reserve for that. It just goes under general surplus.
Okay, going into general surplus.
Yeah,
Okay.
so if we were to go over budget, we would just draw from general surplus.
That's why we can use it for operation.
Yeah, absolutely. Correct. Yeah. And then going to waste collection, so the next kind of bucket, pretty much flat as well. We did increase about $3,000 just because the RDCK tipping fees have gone up a little bit. So we've increased the budget for that, but mostly flat. Public health and wellness, flat, no increases there. And parks and recreation, pretty much flat. A couple $1,000s increase just to kind of cover the inflation and wages, but overall pretty much flat. The other one that's not flat, there's only 3 on here. The last one is interest expense. And so I'll kind of briefly go through that. So as you can see, we budgeted about 22,000 last year for interest expense. Well, I usually draw on the screen for you people at home. I'm forgetting. I've circled it now so you can see where I'm at. Your interest expense, we budgeted 22,000 last year, and we're actually budgeting 73,000 this year. And that's because of 2 things. First, in the budget, we contain a loan for the fire truck. So that's one thing. And so that increases, with the information I have, that increases the interest by about $35,000 in 2026. So that's item number 1, which we'll talk more about a little bit later. And then another item that happened in 2025 was with one of our existing loans for the wellness center. And so that's a long-term loan that we have. And so how long-term loans with MFA works, let's say you have a 20-year loan, generally the first 10 years are locked in at a certain rate. And so this rate happened to be 2.2% interest, which is extremely low, great rate. We've had that locked in for a period of time. And then after the first 10 years, generally it resets to whatever your current rate is. Can't control it, you don't have any say, it's whatever the MFA rate is at that time. And so it did renew or reset, I guess, in 2025 last year to 4.1% interest rate. So that's why if you do look at the interest item on here, we did go over budget on that because when we budgeted, we didn't know what the interest rate was going to be. But now that we know, we can account for that in 2026. And so that difference between the 2.25% interest rate we were getting and the 4.1 that we are getting now is about $18,000. So it's, it's it's a bit of cash for sure that we need to add onto the budget for that. That's uncontrollable. So that's why the interest rate has increased. Before I pivot to the revenue side, any questions about these expenses? Yeah, we'll go through some more in detail. We'll go through the fire truck and we'll go through some of these items a little bit more detail later too. But
Councillor Lentz, I saw your head shake no. Councillor McKellar, I can't actually see your head. You're in a ray of sunshine. There you go.
Yeah,
Do you have any
lighting in
questions?
this room isn't great. No questions for me. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
okay, so moving on to the next slide. So that's all our operational expenses. So moving on to the next slide is the operational revenues, kind of the other side of that transaction. We'll go through the same, again, it's comparing last year's budget to this year's budget. We'll start off with tax rates, and again, we'll talk a little bit more about tax rates a little bit later too. Tax rates are just a plug, I call it, right? After you determine all your expenses, your capital contributions, and all your other revenue that we see on this slide, whatever's left to balance the budget is taxation. So I don't start there. It's just the $625,000 figure you see for the 2026 budget is just what I needed to raise to balance the budget. So
I'd like to use the word investment.
investment, great work. we'll use that. I agree. So not much to talk about there. The driver of the tax rates is really everything else. Some of the expenses that we talked about and capital investments. So I'll skip over that. We'll talk more about tax rates later. Sales of service, so that's your next section there. Really no difference there. So that's your garbage collection fees and your gargle fees, really. There's a slight increase in sales of service by about 2,000, and that's just because we increased the garbage collection rates by a tiny little bit, 2.4%. Other revenue, again, you'll see no change really from last year either, about $2,000, not much. This is all your licenses and permits, your campground revenue, your rental revenue, fines, that kind of stuff. That's all lumped into this category. The next section, again, not much to talk about, no change, investment income. So this is just an estimate based on how much money we have in the bank and what interest rates are. Around 36,000 is what we earned last year. I anticipate around the same for this year. And then your next unconditional grants. This is a meaningful one. So I've got a note on this. This is your small communities grant. And I seem to talk about this one every year because it seems to go down every year. And this significantly impacts your tax rates because this is money that we receive from the province we can use for operating the local government. We had budgeted $451,000 last year because that's what we had received the prior year, but we only actually received $438,000. And so that's what I'm budgeting for in 2026 again. So it doesn't sound like a big difference, only $13,000, but the only other mechanism to make that back is through taxation. We have no control over this amount. So when there's a $13,000 decrease, that means we have to increase taxation by about just over 2% to make up just that difference alone. Just about 2%. Yeah. So there's a bit of a budget decrease, which increases tax rate pressure. And then finally, the last item is conditional grants. So these are your biggest one in here by far is your community works fund or your it used to be called gas tax. That's $115,000 out of this. Everything else is just a bunch of these small little grants. So like your JAWS grant, or some RDC operating grants, they're included in here. So there's really no change between this year and last year. The only couple things I pulled out, last year's budget, I allocated a little bit for it out of NG 911 and LG CAP funding, which we didn't use. So I just pulled it out of this year. It doesn't affect taxation.
Can I ask a question about the JAWS? When we
Yes.
get that, do we automatically put it in our reserve?
Yes, at the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, unless it's budgeted to be spent, but I mean, it hasn't been in 2025, for example. Any questions on the revenue side? Again, we'll talk about the tax rates a little bit more, but any questions on any of the other areas in the revenue slide?
Counselor McKellar? No?
Nope, nothing.
Okay, Counselor Lins? I can't see you anymore.
No questions for me.
Okay, so we'll move on. So this is a very busy slide, but this is basically just a numerical version of what we just spoke about. So I'm not going to go through the revenue and expenses. These are all exactly what we just went through, but I just wanted to ensure that you had this. And I just want to point out a couple things, which is my notes on the right-hand side there. So one thing we haven't talked about yet is transfers to reserves, and that's all contained within this slide. So we can look at kind of this section here. So transfers to reserves in 2026. No change in the transfer to machinery and equipment reserve, 50,000. That's what we've been doing the last several years. There is a change, however, that I made, which is optional. We do not have to do this for the fire department reserve. As you can see, last year we transferred 50,500. I've reduced it to 40,000 this year. But if you notice for the next year, 2027, I bumped it back up to 50,500. So the reason why I've done this will become more apparent a little bit later, but it's basically to ease tax rate pressure. The impact on tax rates from the fire truck loan is significant. So I was looking for ways to, minimize that increase as much as possible. And this is one lever we have to pull where we can do that. And again, optional, we don't have to. But then you see it back up to 50,500 in 2027. That's because we have the loan for the Public Works shop that matures in 2026, which impacts 2027 budget. So we get about $10,000 back when we're not paying interest and principal on that loan. So basically what I've done is reduce the transfer to fire department equipment reserve in 2024 to ease tax rate pressure, and then you get that back through in 2027. So again, optional, but I think it's a good way to smooth rates a little bit. And we'll see the impact of that on a slide, a couple slides from now. And then keep following transfer to Jaws of Life Reserve. We anticipate on average we get just under 20,000. So if whatever we receive, we transfer into reserves, it'll be around 20,000 likely.
Can I ask you a question about that one?
Yeah, of course.
Is in that reserve, can it only be used for the Jaws of Life, or can it be used for the truck that carries the Jaws of Life? Thank you.
It can be used for any fire, according to the bylaw, it can be used for any fire related, like emergency capital.
Okay.
Yeah. And then transfer to the wellness center, that's what we received from RDCK, I believe. That's about 10,000. Parks reserve, we transfer about 7,000. And then community works fund, we transfer everything that we receive from the gas tax. So we anticipate about 115,000. And then finally, I just want to draw your attention to the debt principal payments. We talked about on the last slide or 2 slides ago, the interest rate. So we talked about the interest expense going up. Well, this is the other component to it. There's interest and principal payments when you take out a loan. And so this is the principal payment portion. So you can see it going up from 23,800 in 2025 up to 53,700 in 2026. So that's due to the fire truck loan. And also you can see that going down in 2027, and that's again when the public works shop loan matures. So we then go back down a little bit. So it's a little bit lumpy.
Although we didn't actually have it. So what we're saying is we put this amount for 2 years into reserve, including the 50,000?
For the fire department?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure your question. So we put 50,500 last year into the fire department equipment reserve. We're lowering that to 40,000 this year.
Right.
Yeah,
Although what I'm wondering is this, what your thing says over here, is this for for the fire truck?
that's right.
So what are these two numbers then?
Oh, that's for the,
Wellness center
And
wellness center.
Yeah,
and the shop.
yeah, you bet.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So the wellness center one is still built into those, yeah, for sure.
I think it matures in 2030.
30 something, yeah. Is it 30? Maybe it's 2030.
It might be 2030.
Yeah.
Or 2035.
Okay.
It's not too far away.
Yeah. Okay, and moving on. Now, kind of what does all this mean for tax rates? So this is kind of where we get into that story. So what I've presented so far with the operational budget, the reserve contributions that we spoke about, what that means is about a 15.6% increase in my revenue requirement for taxation. Then what that means, I'm going to just draw on here, just drawing your attention kind of at the bottom of the screen at this point. To balance the budget based on everything that we spoke about, we need to raise $582,000, which is about a 15.6% increase over what we raised last year in taxation. So the little kind of bar chart on the left kind of shows that last year base rate, I'm calling it, from taxation was about 506,000. Now we need 582,000. So 73,000 of that is from a tax rate increase. And then a little bit of that, 3,500 is just from new construction. And just a reminder, new construction is, if somebody builds a home or sorry, in addition to a home, or builds another level to their home, or builds a garage on their property, their tax assessment value goes up, and then they pay a bit more taxes, and that's called new construction. So we earn a little bit more money when people do substantial renovations to their home. Now, what does that mean in dollars for taxpayers? It's going to draw your attention kind of to this square here, and that top row below the black line. So municipal portion of the property tax. So if you were an average, maybe I'll start with the average single family home first. All these rates are based on the average single family home. Everybody's tax rates or the amount that they'll be paying vary depending on your property assessed value. So the average single family home in Salmo for 2026 is $385,677, where last year it was $374,594. So you're on average, people's home value increased by about 3%. So these figures I'm going to go over are based on an average single family home. So if you own a single family home in Salmo that's worth around $385,000, this is what you would expect to pay on your tax bill for the municipal portion. If your home value is much greater than that, $500,000, $600,000, then you will pay more. If your home value is worth less, $250,000, $300,000, then you will pay less than this. This is just based on the average. So in 2025, your average single family home would have paid around $762 per year in municipal taxes. And what we're asking for in this budget this year is that goes from $762 to $883 per year. So that's an increase of about $121 per year, or about $10 per month. Now, if you go just above that, it's kind of grayed out because I didn't want to get it confused with the rest of the section, but hopefully it's a bit legible. What makes up that $121 is really two things. Like the fire truck is the biggest proportion. It's $105 of that is basically the fire truck loan. Everything else is about $16. So the fire truck loan definitely has a big impact on taxation for 2026. The waste collection, water and sewer, again, those rates were already passed. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over those, but you can see what the impact would be on your average single family home. And if you add all those up, For the municipal portion and your utilities, we can expect your average single family home to pay about $177 per year more than they would have last year, or about $14, just under $15 per month more than what they would have paid last year. A lot of information, a lot of numbers. Any questions on this before we move on?
Councillor Lins, no. Councillor McKellar?
Nope.
Okay. The next slide, I'll move on to the next slide. It kind of gives a good indication. This is one of the new slides I added of what makes up that 15.6% increase that we were just talking about. And I'm just taking like big picture items that have major impacts on the budget. So I'll walk you through this one. I'll draw on the screen again because it's easier to follow along, but I'll go kind of line by line on this one. So what I'm calling is your base tax rates, your first row on the top is just, you know, kind of your ordinary every year. There's inflation factors, there's small wage increases that go up with CPI. So when you just factor those in the 2026 budget, you would experience about a 4.8% rate increase. So that's kind of just your inflationary factors. And so that would be about $26,000 of more taxes we would need to raise as a village. I mentioned, so then your next line item, I mentioned before we had a decrease in the small communities grant. So by $13,000. So what is the impact on the tax rate of that? About 2.8%. So if you add up the 4.8% that I just spoke about and the 2.8%, the cumulative impact, which is in that third column, you add those two up, you're at 7.6%. So if nothing else, just inflation and small community grant decrease, the tax rate for the village change would be 7.6%. And let's keep going. So we talked about the wellness center loan. So that loan was at 2.2% and the interest rate jumped to 4.1%. So that's an impact of about $18,000 per year of interest that we have to pay on that loan more than we did last year, which is about a 3.9% tax rate impact. So if you add that to the 7.6, then the tax rate increase at that point would be about 11.5%. And now here comes the fire truck loan. So the fire truck loan warrants with principal and interest payments about $65,000 per year. And so the impact on the tax rates of that alone is 13.8%. So if you add that to the 11.5, tax rate increase would be 25%, 25.3%. Now, some mitigation techniques or tools that we used to bring that tax rate back down. There's some of the things we spoke about before. So putting the snow removal budget back down from 95,000, which is what we were budgeting it at before, down to 60, which is kind of the historical norm. We're able to reduce the tax rate impact by 7.5%, or $35,000. And then that when we spoke about reducing the fire reserve contribution for just the 1 year, we'll bring it back up in 2027, when that decrease of 10,500 reduces the tax rate impact again by 2.3%. And then so if you add all those up from the cumulative column, we get to that 15.6%. So those are kind of all the major players, the major factors, and how they work together to get us to that 15.6%.
Do you guys have any questions on that slide? No?
Nope.
Okay. My question would be is for the 10-year at 4.1, is there any way if that interest rate goes down, will they let us reapply, or are we no matter what, we're locked for 10 years and then after that it's 75?
Yeah, so generally we'd have to look specifically at the terms for that specific loan. generally the first 10 years are locked in. But if it's a 20-year term or a 25-year term, you'd have to look at that specifically. It's either locked in for 5 years or 10 years after that. It could be five.
It's 5 for the 20-year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're locked in for 5 years at that 4.1% or interest rate. And then, if there's another 5 years on that, then that rate would reset again in 5 years from now.
Right, so I'm just
Yeah.
like the 10 years, we could end up going back down in 10 years from now, right? We have
Yeah.
tumultuous times right now, and
Yes.
in 2028,
Yeah.
things might change.
Yeah, but to your point, there's no way to apply. You kind of locked in with MFA at those
At
rates.
those rates.
And that is one of those for the fire truck loan. Now I should be clear, I kind of have it in my notes here. The fire truck loan and all the math and all the budget is based on these assumptions that I wrote down in here. An $850,000 loan at 20 years at the 4.1% rate. So if that changes before we finalize this budget, that would change the rate. But that's the information I have today. So that's what I built into the budget. Okay.
So we understand that what he's saying is the rate could change by the time we get approval with MFA in September. So, because we're not getting the loan until September because we missed the spring loan and there's 2 intakes in a year. So what Nathan is saying, the CFO is saying, is that 4.1 is what it is right now. And the actual truck may cost us more than 850 also, because we're only tied to that 850 for 30 days, which is going to come and go on by the time that comes. Did you want to add any more to that?
No, I was just gonna say that, I guess just a little, the truck, we, right now, the 850 is where we would probably estimate, and then, to the point of Nathan with, the dropping potential change in the interest rate from now till then, will affect things a little bit, but yeah.
And I don't think that rate will change a lot, but there's a lot of geopolitics going on right now, so who the heck knows?
That's right.
This is the information we have from the MFA website today. Okay, that's kind of it on the tax rate section, and probably it on the fire truck. I mean, we can certainly talk about it a little bit more after, but I'll kind of finish the rest of the slide deck, and then we'll kind of have a bit more conversation if we want to change anything. So the next slides are just more on the reserve contributions and reserve balances. So we'll just kind of go through these individually. I'll explain what these are. So this is reserve contributions, and instead of taking a forward-looking look, which I do for the utility reserves generally in the first section of this deck, I kind of went on a historical look, just so you can have a picture of, hey, what have we contributed to reserves over the years? And if you do all reserves, or just taking your major ones. So water, it's been pretty steady, honestly, over the years. I mean, we do have to consider inflation when we're putting reserve contributions in. Like generally, we like to increase contributions every year if we can, just to keep up with the inflation. When you're buying equipment, 10 years down the road or 20 years down the road, inflation really matters. So if you look at the water infrastructure reserve, we've been contributing quite well. No major increases, just kind of maybe a bit above inflation contributions every year historically. We have a strong reserve balance, which we'll see in a little bit for water. So no need to make any large increases at this point. Sewer infrastructure, you can see a little bit of a different story. In 2023, we only contributed about 14,000 to the reserve, and then we've been increasing that steadily over the years. The cost of delivering that service and the capital outlay has been significant over the years. We have a pretty low reserve balance, which we'll see in a couple slides, and so we really need to build that up. That's the reason for those increases. Fire equipment reserve. Similar story, several years back, we weren't contributing too much. We were around 20,000, I think, every year. Going back to 2021, 22, 23, around 20,000 is what we're contributing. But we've since increased that slightly just to, recognize that 20,000 a year wasn't enough. Fire trucks are expensive. So we've increased that to 50,500. And you do see that decrease slightly for 2026 budget, but we talked about that already. That'll jump back up to our 50,500 in 2027. This was just to ease tax rate pressure for 2026. And then finally, on the right-hand side, you can see the machinery and equipment reserve, which is our other big one. We have increased those reserve contributions over the last 3 years, but we've kind of kept it constant at 50,000, just to kind of, build up that reserve a little bit.
Any questions on that? I just want to verify that the actual 23 and 24 budget is actual numbers.
Yeah, 23 and 24 would have been what we actually put into the reserve, 25 as well. So whatever we put in these reserves, whatever we budget for is what I put into the reserves. Now we might, like, what's not included in here is reserve withdrawals. These are just reserve contributions. But yes, yeah, these are all actuals or what we budgeted for this year. So if the years pass, that's what we would have put in there. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a false sense of security when we take out.
Yeah.
We put in and we take out, and we don't have those numbers to
Yeah.
actually say, so we have 175,000 or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What we're putting in to compare to what we're taking out.
Yeah.
Percentage wise.
Yeah. And I have all that information, and it's, maybe it is on different slides.
Yeah.
I guess like the alternative, and I certainly could do this next year. I've done it for other municipalities, and they find it really busy once you get all of your reserves on there. But it's this chart here. So it's what I do for the utilities. Blow that up or not a little bit. So for the utilities, I do that where I show reserve contribution, reserve expenditures, and then your reserve balances like the green bar on top. So I could certainly, do something like that, maybe in the next presentation for each of the main reserves, if this is not too complicated. Yeah, it is kind of nice. It's an important note, right? Our reserve contributions are only part of the story. How much are we taking out?
Right. And the reason I'm saying that for council is because of the fire truck. There's been a lot of feedback that why haven't you been putting more away? To be able to outright buy this fire truck so it's not costing us so much.
Yeah.
Well, it's half a dozen of one, taxes would have been a lot higher then over time. Or do the people that are using the fire truck now are paying for the fire truck over time, which will include Area G once we renegotiate that contract.
Yeah. To your point, there's maybe some different philosophies on that, but like ultimately, if had we saved up, our reserve contributions would have been double, which would have increased taxes. Yeah, for sure. The benefit is you're earning interest on your reserve balances as opposed to paying interest to a bank taking out a loan. But yeah, either way, you're either paying money in principal payments or you're putting it into reserves, and which both increase tax rates. Yeah. Nothing for free, unfortunately. Moving on to that was reserve contributions that we went over. Now let's look at some reserve balances. So the next several slides are reserve balances here. So these are your utility reserves. In retrospect, I should have done water in blue. It makes more logical sense, but I decided water in green for some reason. But as you can see, we have a pretty healthy water reserve balance. So, we're around 460,000. That's what we're budgeting for water. Now, This does not include, you know, we know we do have some water reservoir capital expenditures coming in the future. We don't know what those numbers are yet, so this is not included in that. Once we get those figures, then we'll bake them into the budget so we can get a more accurate look. But why we're not concerned that this is high is because we know there's going to be some big capital expenditures down the road. So it needs to be high. We need to keep building that water reserve.
This is not high.
No,
For water?
Yeah, totally. Utilities are expensive.
Well, I just think of if we lose that reservoir, that line.
Yeah.
The millions of dollars that it will take, and we're not even at $500,000 yet.
Yeah.
So this is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, literally water.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, of course, we can leverage grants as well to help. And so that'll be extremely helpful, but yeah, that's why it's important to have good reserve balances. Now sewer, I mean, we've done some major capital upgrades in sewer over the last several years. That's why we see the sewer so low relatively. But as you can see in 24, 25, 26, we're heading in the right direction, building those reserve balances back up for our utility. Going on to the next slide. Actually, before we go to the next slide, so to understand how things work, the sewer and the water utility reserves aren't funded by taxation. They're funded by user fees, your water fees and your sewer fees. That's how we raise these reserves. Then your next slide, which is equipment reserves. Now those are funded by taxation. So there are subtle differences there in municipal budgeting. So in green is just the regular equipment reserve, and in blue, the fire department reserve. As you can see, the fire department reserve budget, reserve balance goes down significantly in our 2026 budget. That's because in this budget is contained a $200,000 deposit for the fire truck, right? We don't know exactly how much it's going to cost yet, so these are the best information we have. So that's what's contained in the budget. If it becomes less, then we'll have more equipment reserve. And then, really no comment on the equipment reserve. You can see we've been, it's been up and down as you expend, it goes down, as you keep contributing, it goes up. Next slide. So these are your community works fund and growing communities fund. Now these are funded externally. They're not funded by taxation. They're not funded by fees. Community works fund, well, yeah, maybe provincial taxation, not your municipal taxation. Good point. So community works fund is in green. As you can see, that's also up and down depending on what capital projects that we have. And then your growing community grant or balance in blue. Now that was a one-time grant, and so that will naturally deplete down to zero as we do capital expenditures. So that's just want to show you got the balance of those. And then finally, this is just kind of your other category. So this is your Jaws of Life, your wellness center reserves, and then we have several more like the ambulance, parks that I just kind of lumped into one because they're smaller. Cemetery. So that's just shown in time. So really, you get no comment here, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys have the information. And then finally, the last reserve slide, all I've done here. It is a bit confusing. I don't know. It's your total reserve balances. In green is your total reserves, all of your reserves that you have. In your blue, I've done your total, but I just excluded your growing community funds. And just because that was a one-time grant, so you can see between 2022 and 2023, there's a big spike. We really jumped in our reserve balances. That's just because we got a lot of money for the Growing Communities Fund. But anyways, again, no comment here necessarily. Just wanted to make sure that you had that information.
Is any of our reserves set up that we can't, that we can use it for another project or something? So like when we stole from water to help with sewer, we paid back the water. Did we actually have to pay back the water?
Yeah.
So that is still, when it goes into a reserve, it has to be paid back to that reserve.
Yeah.
And that's just so, because Councilor McKellar has not been part of that, so just so he knows that.
Yeah, and the reason for is because I kind of alluded to earlier, some reserves are funded by taxation, some reserves are from sewer fees, some reserves are from water fees. It would be unfair to charge, water rates that accumulates water reserves and have that pay for a fire truck, because those are two different things. One needs to be funded by taxation and one from fees. So you can borrow between reserves, but you have to do what the bylaw says in terms of, a box around what you can buy. Your bylaws stipulate, water reserves can only be used for water infrastructure, for example. Good question. Okay, moving on, just a couple of slides left. Capital budget. So this is what is budgeted for capital costs. These next two slides. Won't go through them all. CAO, I don't know if you want to go through them all, or if you have any questions on specific ones that we can answer. I'll probably need the CAO's help on this one because he's more intimate with the investments than I am.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that there was some questions regarding the some of the purchases. I guess the question on some of the pumps was just to do with kind of creating a bit of a backup inventory for them. We had some repairs last year that caused our plant to shut down. So we ended up replacing some pumps, but these right now are meant in the budget for rebuilds, so that now they are backup, so that the wastewater treatment plant in particular doesn't go down when one of the pumps has issues, and that has kind of been the scenario up to this point. So the idea is just building in some further capacity for those. Outside of that, there was the question about the guardrail project management. That was just to do with the handling of the quote and the tendering of the guardrails. Then that's and then a last minute addition, I guess, that we added in comparison to when council reviewed the capital plan before was there's computer purchases that were added to that. We were going to last year we had changed over IT providers, and right at the end of the contract they provided us with a bit of a summary for the status of our computers, and they noted with our new IT providers that we need to replace them this year because Windows 11 is no longer supported for security, and our IT people are recommending that we get new computers to close that loop. So outside of that, I don't know if there was any other specific questions from council for any of this. I'm happy to answer.
I think there is one question which will show up in the next slide, which is kind of the funding sources for these. So the next slide will kind of show, a little bit more detail where the funding is from.
Does either of you have a question on this page?
Yeah, maybe just more of a comment that we'll keep an eye on the sewer plant over the next few years and ensure that we bought enough spares that we won't see this level of expenditure on pumps for a while.
Yes, if I can comment to that, Councilor McKellar. Yeah, this would provide. I'm not going to say all of the pumps because I'm not that familiar with the plant, but these will definitely handle the majority of the pumps for any sort of replacement. Like this definitely increases our capacity compared to last year, and so hopefully I agree with your sentiment. Hopefully there's not going to be any more surprises. Last year we had a couple, and we're hoping that this these purchases will help mitigate any of those surprises, but really we're hoping that this will be a lot of the end of it.
Councillor Lenz, do you have a question?
What is the, sorry, I need to find it, development process harmonization project?
So that is that was a grant that we had applied for, or a project that was under the LG DAP, and what that was for was harmonizing all of our building permit bylaws as well as our utilities and for housing development.
Okay, thank you. I had forgotten exactly what it was for.
And on this, sorry, go ahead.
Before, can we, on the budget,
Mhm.
if all four of those are spare pumps, as we have well water spare motor, can we get that put in as a spare pump? So when the public sees it, they're not, and then all of a sudden one comes up, then it's much clearer, and it would help for council for the next budget.
Yeah, can you point to which one you're speaking about?
All four, this one says spare motor,
Oh, yeah,
and these, as the CEO said, is all spare
yeah. I
pumps,
see. Yeah, yeah.
but it looks like they're all new pumps.
Oh, I see. So
So
just to.
Just to put a note in that it's a spare
Yeah.
going forward, so.
Yeah.
And it would be easier to, for whoever is looking at it.
And staying on that same slide, there was a question about some of the acronyms, and I apologize. I probably should have, explained on this slide what the acronyms are. There's so many acronyms in government, so I don't expect you guys to remember them all. But on the possible funding source column, there's a few, so I'll just go through them quickly. CWF is Community Works Fund, so they hold gas tax. LGHI is Local Government Housing Initiative. That was a one-time grant that we received a year or two ago. LGCAP, Local Government Climate Action Plan. Again, that was another one-time government grant that we received that we can spend. And I think that's it for the acronyms. There's also a question about the right-hand column, the priority column. Now that completely optional. I think that's more between council and the CAO to, if you guys feel the need to work together to prioritize these things, then feel free, but there's definitely no requirement. I don't need that information. I just sometimes CAOs, want that specific direction on, hey, I can't do all of this. Which ones do you want me to prioritize? But you guys can discuss that between yourselves. I don't need that information to do much. I think that those were the only questions. The next slide might answer another question or two. So if we move on to the next slide, this is the same information that you had on the previous slide. Maybe next year I'll just include this one. It's just a little bit busy, but this does show where the funding source is, right? It shows all of our, everything in blue, all of our reserves. I've hidden a few just because they were $0. I didn't want to make this page too big. And then all the items in yellow are basically kind of external grants. And so you can see line by line what the budget is for 2026 and then what the funding source is. So if you were to ask, well, how much are we spending in the growing communities grant, for example, you can kind of look down at the bottom of the column and say, oh, 94,000. How much are we spending over the Michigan Equipment Reserve? Well, 108,000. So this is a good little reference point. There are odd times, I must say, when we're doing our year end, and that we might shuffle a couple of these around, but generally not, right? This is what council has approved, but sometimes if there's, something in the gas tax is a good example. If it's like $3,000 at the end of the year, we spend way less than we anticipated, I'm probably going to take it out again, like put it somewhere else because there's a whole bunch of gas tax reporting that you have to do. It's not worth it. So generally these will stay as they are, but sometimes for year end low dollar amounts we might. Any questions on the capital stuff or the funding?
Councillor Lenz or Councillor McKellar, do you guys have any more questions on that part of the budget?
No questions.
Now that concludes my presentation. So, kind of can open it up to general questions or, if we want to attack, certain aspects of this a little bit more, then talk about the fire truck or talk about anything else, we can certainly do that.
Okay, so that was all capital stuff,
Mhm.
right? What about operations? Where are we with, so we didn't get these until just now.
Mhm.
And I need a microscope to be able to see them because they're very, very small.
Yeah.
What are we seeing a difference? Because I know that there was a conversation, and maybe the CAO can help me if I'm going on the wrong way, is how many times we're going to do inspections on our vehicles. And there was a conversation at one of the meetings that we were going to do it 3 times a year, which doesn't make sense because how many times do we, as our personal vehicles, we don't get them inspected 3 times a year. We're putting a lot more mileage on that.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't make sense to go down to 2 times a year on heavy equipment and what I'll call everyday vehicles that there's once a year. Does that make sense? And how is that reflected in the operations budget?
Yeah, so that's in the transportation section of the budget.
Okay.
And so I didn't differentiate between 2 times and 3 times in this budget. So I didn't add anything for the 3rd time. If my technique would be, if we're doing it twice, then I think we can absorb that twice a year into the existing budget.
Okay.
If we end up doing it 3 times, then we'll look back at the budget in 2027 and say, okay, well, we really need to increase this. But, a $3,000 or $4,000 change, with a transportation budget of $310,000, like, it's not too significant.
Okay.
Like I think that can be built in the existing budget.
Okay.
Again, when we relook at this next year, if we're saying, hey, we're going over budget because we're doing 3 inspections a year, then in 2027 we'll look at increasing. But no change for this year. And didn't incorporate,
Okay.
extra provisions for that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so in regards to to your original question, the operating budget, so that was kind of the first section that we went through, and of course I don't go through every little detail, but I give you the heavy hitters.
Okay.
And, like in the general government category, these are the main drivers. In the interest expense, these are the main drivers. So it would take a while to go through.
IT is something that was a heavy hitter.
Yep.
Going to be a heavy hitter this year.
Yep.
Right? Computers.
That and we had new IT services come out last year and their fees increased dramatically. So this was not a surprise at all, unfortunately. The computers thing was a bit of a last minute add, but as far as our fees for our contracted services, we knew that those were going to increase for the better part of the year already. So,
And in fairness, when we talked about that increase of I budgeted an extra $14,000 for that this year over last year. And it's not because we're necessarily spending $14,000 more than we did in 2025. In 2025, at the beginning of the year when we were budgeting, we didn't know what the increased costs would be for an entire year. So now that we know, I need to incorporate that for the 2026 budget. So to be clear, it's not like we're spending an extra 14. I just need to budget that extra 14 that we didn't budget for last year.
Right. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on the actual operation? Which I don't know, did everybody get like a
Brandy would have
emailed
emailed it out this
Okay.
afternoon. I hope councillors have gotten that. I will, if not,
Can you see this? The long sheets? The legal size? You can't read it. I can't read it looking right at it. But did you get it in your email?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. And so all that stuff in that email boils up to like slide 12 and slide 13. So that's essentially what that is. Well, I guess slide 11, 12, and 13. Or sorry, 12, 13, and 14. All these where it says draft operations budget, like on the operations side, that's all that data.
Okay. The one thing, and I don't know if you'll know this because I didn't
Yeah, that's
think about this, is what is our legal at?
Yeah, I don't know. But it'll be in there. I don't have
I know,
that in front of
it'll be
me,
in here,
but I could find that pretty quick. If
You know, I can't hardly read the little tiny writing.
it's small.
I just wonder because of some things.
So legal services, so we have $8,000 budget. And last year we expended about 6,900. So just over what we spent last year. What I suggest on the budget when it's when we're talking about impacting tax rates, what I usually recommend is whatever you typically spend, kind of what your average is, budget for that. But if you do have, if you know something's going on, and I know I'm gonna spend 20,000 or 15,000, and we don't want to raise taxes just because one year you might have a spike, we might use surplus for that.
Okay.
So for taxation purposes only, we budgeted 8,000.
Okay, it's because some of the legal stuff is because of housing.
Okay.
And and our OCP and stuff that they got, and the different bylaws that, you know, we're having to, our diking, or not diking, our floodplain, all of that, they're doing a workshop today, there's possibility of legals in that, and so there's that possibility of spending anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000.
Yeah.
Depends on how much work gets done.
Sure.
So that's why I just wanted to make sure I brought it up, is to make sure that, so, and what you're saying is we're just gonna use surplus.
Yeah, well, it depends. So in those situations you pointed out, you might want to consider using the LGHI grant, the local government health initiative grant, which will likely cover those depending exactly what you're doing. You'd have to look into it. But if it does qualify, I would leverage those grants. And then so in that case, you know, okay, we'll go over budget, but we're getting grant revenue to cover it. So it's not a big deal. It won't affect taxation at all. If we can't use grants, those grants specifically, then we'll go over budget, but we'll have good reason for it because we needed to get the work done, and we'll just leverage surplus. But for those things where we know we're going to have those one-off years that are high, some years that are low, you typically just want to budget for the average when it comes to like tax revenue. So yeah, so 8,000 is around what we've been spending the last couple of years.
Are you comfortable with only 8,000 knowing all this stuff?
Yes, because just to Nathan's point, we would, for a lot of those, just to speak to that local government housing, like last year, we submitted, something like $2,500 total, and we received 155,000. So, and that was the first expenditures we have. So we have a lot of money left in that, and that is meant for any study, any of our, frankly, anytime we hire out any consultant or professional opinion for anything that is a study or a look, we can use that money for.
Right. Okay, so what I would like to do, if council would like, is and I cannot see names. I'm sorry. It's just, maybe if you just take that down. That might help. Thank you. Okay. So if council would like to give freedom of the floor to the public to ask any questions for our CAO or our CFO on the budget right now, I would entertain a motion.
All motion.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Are you two opposed? I'm not opposed. Okay, that's carried. Now, I can't even read the names.
So we'll start with on the top. Okay, so let's start with Mel.
do you have any questions for our CFO, our financial officer, or our administrative officer, Mel? On the budget?
No questions. You're good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Shauna?
Shauna, do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And who-
Andy? Would you have any questions, Andy?
Okay, not hearing any. So we're gonna receive this information, but is there anything that you would like to see a change in, more discussion on, or anything like that? Either one of you. I'm talking to both counselors now.
I'm fine.
No, just drinking in my first budget round and so just a lot of information that I'm processing.
Okay, so I'm just gonna make a comment that it is a big increase, although we knew it was going to be because of the fire truck. There is no way around it. Unfortunately, we didn't do it last year to try and get in at the 2.5. We didn't know it was gonna skyrocket and double this year. But it is in front of us, and not hearing that there's any major changes that anybody has or wants to have the CFO look at how we reduce or increase one or the other. I would entertain motion to accept the budget as presented.
A motion.
I'll second.
So that's first reading, or accept the motion present, so then, because we don't have a bylaw, we can't actually do that. So all in favor?
Can I ask a question, Dana?
Yep, yes, you may.
Now this, we're accepting this budget, with the stipulation things might still change with the fire truck, with the,
I can answer that.
Yeah.
So, yes, so what happens when, there is a certain timeline where you have to create a budget by, it has to be submitted to the province before May 15th. So how we build a budget for things like the fire truck and the interest rates, we use the best information we have today, and we build the budget that way because there's a time constraint. If 2 months, let's say June rolls around and you've got a deal for 50% off a fire truck, then you will go under budget, and then we'll revisit the tax rates and the tax rate implications for 2027. Or if you have to pay more for a fire truck, we'll revisit that in 2027. But we have to set tax rates before May 15th, and we have to have a financial plan accepted before May 15th. So this is the best information we have today. And so based on that, we need to go forward unless there's some change that you'd like to see. We do need to go forward with the process.
gotcha.
Okay, so this is only receiving this information. Okay, and hearing that there's no changes that are wanted, one way or the other, increase or decrease, that now what we'll end up doing is staff will bring back a bylaw that will be in front of us for first, second, and third reading, and adoption. And that bylaw will also have the 5-year financial plan in it. So that is, this year is the actual budget. The next 4 years are called guesstimates. So you'll see that this year was, 16% or something, that next year maybe is only 4% or 5%. And that is, they have to do a 5-year financial plan to be able to show the province that you're not gonna break the community. Okay? So, all in favor? Okay. And
Can I just add one
Yes,
point to
yes.
actually comment from Councilor McCallum that I should have mentioned to you? Just because you know, if you're new with this process, whenever we create a budget, let's say for capital, let's keep talking about the fire truck for a moment. If we budget in the fire truck, sorry, if we budget the fire truck for $1 million contained in this budget, but let's say it's, you know, ends up being 1.2. We then do a budget amendment, which comes in front of council again. So although, you know, nothing's solidified, we don't have an invoice for the truck yet, we don't know how much it's gonna be, we use our best estimate. If things are going over budget, we have to come to council first for a budget amendment. So there's, just because that's not solidified doesn't mean you won't get the opportunity to voice an opinion and comment on it if things go over budget. Just thought I would add that.
Thank you for that.
okay. Alrighty. Are we, you're good, you're good with that then?
Yeah, so my next steps is building the 5-year financial plan, which I'll have before the next special council meeting, and then we'll create the bylaw and the tax rate bylaw, and then we'll go from there.
And that is April 20th.
Yeah, are we?
We good for that? April 20th at 7 PM.
Okay.
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will,
Thank you so much for all of that.
no problem at all.
Okay, we'll go on to the Sustainable Salmo Visual Community Plan, bylaw 769, 2026.
Okay, yeah, so, I had received a couple, of, changes to the map, to some of the map, just as far as correcting, them, but, there's not really, too much, that involves discussion. Like, I think it's pretty much what we had all, talked about before. It was just a matter of, timing it with the regional district, GIS staff. But yeah, ultimately we've heard the feedback from everybody, and now we're at a point that I guess if council is comfortable with the document in front of us, we can proceed with the first reading. Of course, we will have to book a public hearing for this after the first reading, that and then that will allow the last window of changes. So this will allow us to change the maps or any last minute changes. Thanks, Nathan. And yeah, go from there. But the first reading is just kind of to you know, get the ball rolling for the readings themselves. So my recommendation would be to proceed with the first reading, and then what will happen is at the public hearing, all of the changes that were brought forward for the maps that haven't been completed will show up on the at the hearing. But it's really just the map designations that are changing. There's nothing else in the verbiage or anything else that would reflect anything different than what you're seeing today. It would just be a couple colors on the map changing though.
Any questions?
None
So
for me.
if we pass the first reading and we'll get, everything will be changed before we pass the second read? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yes, after the first reading, we'll have a public hearing, which we have to have one after the first reading. So we will have that, and then if there's any changes again, they will all be implemented in the second reading going forward. And the map changes, the workshop that I did today was on floods and stuff like that. That's possibly going to change again. And so that would be my question to the CEO is, if that changed after the third reading, how do we update that map?
We have to do just well, it's a complicated process, but it would be, we'd have to amend the OCP.
Is there any way, it does all of those maps, those other maps, are they, must they be in the OCP?
As far I know that there's certain legal requirements for the schedules, which ones, I'm not saying, I haven't looked at that. That's something I have never actually looked at. So I can look to see what schedules are legally required. Because
it's not that we don't have those maps in other bylaws. My concern is it such a big thing to change it? If it is such a big thing to change it each time in the OCP, is the ones that don't have to be, like the floodplain one, is in the floodplain bylaw also? So it's easier to change that bylaw than it is to change this bylaw. So if we could have the CAO look into that for the next time too. Councillor Lenz, did you have a supplementary?
Yeah, just supplementary. I have reserves about passing something that we don't have the final pictures on. So that's my question. More about,
We're just getting it on the table so we can start doing some working on it. But I do hear the CAO would just like to speak.
yeah, sorry, and just to, I guess, maybe quell some of those concerns. In theory, if we were in the public hearing and the public came to us with a Hail Mary last minute change that council agreed with, that would happen at the next meeting anyway, along with all of these other changes regardless. So there was always going to be a window legally that there would be potential changes brought from the public between at the public hearing. So that before council would be able to agree to the second and third reading, it would be, you'd have to determine if those changes, if you guys wanted them or not. So that, and if they didn't, then you would basically revert to what was there at the first reading, or basically what, which will include the map changes. But if the public doesn't bring anything forward in the public hearing, it'll just be the map changes that will be shown at the public hearing, that they'll be ready for that. But then the second and third readings, those changes will be reflected in those two readings, in the same way that if the public in the second public hearing coming up said, well, we want to, I don't know, for the sake of argument, put a McDonald's where the mayor's house is. Then we would have to go and, add that to, that change to it in the second and third reading, no matter what. If council went along with that, right? So there's lots of opportunity here, that there's not anything that is going to, like, quote unquote, sneak in. Like there's going to be a lot of opportunity for council and the public to review all of this before it's passed, even with the changes with the map. So,
Councillor McKellar, did you have a question?
thank you.
No.
Okay, so that the Sustainable Salmo Official Community Plan Bylaw 769/2026 be given first reading.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any more questions? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. Okay, and this is for the OCP second public hearing schedule, that council directs staff to book and advertise for a public hearing to discuss the official community plan at the Salmo Valley Youth and Community Center for April 29th, 2026.
I didn't pick a time. My apologies.
That's okay. You don't each pick a time.
Okay.
We
Will
didn't
there be-
actually need a date.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Will there be an opportunity to join remotely like here or not? For that?
It will be trickier because we'll be at the youth center. What will happen is that ultimately, if there was a way for you to remote in, you'd basically remote in through my laptop, so you'd only see me. I don't know if that's what anybody would want, but,
Even if I could just call in and just so I can hear, that would be fine. I won't be back before middle of May or a little later, so.
okay.
And yeah, you could always even, if it doesn't work through the laptop, it's through my phone, I can set it up. So you can hear.
That'll work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and this is a Wednesday evening. So that will go, and just so there's not confusion again, is that legislation says that we can only advertise so many days out from the meeting. We can't, like, it can't be, like, this is, we could do it now because it's in that time frame, but we couldn't do it 2 weeks ahead of time. So just so we're making sure that when we talk to people in the public that that's, we have, is it up to 10 days, 3 to 10 days?
Yeah, it's up to 10, yeah.
Yeah. And that's in the community charter. So we'll stick with that. Who would like to move that?
Can I just ask, did we set a time?
We didn't set a time with, because it hasn't been booked, so we
Okay.
we won't put that in the motion, a time, but as soon as it's booked, we'll get it advertised, probably tomorrow it will get booked, and then they can determine a time, but I would think probably 6.
Yeah, I have checked in with the youth center, the executive director, and the 29th at 6 does work, so, if that.
But we won't put the time in the motion.
Okay, I'll move.
Thank you,
I'll second.
thank you. All in favor? Carried. Okay, adoption, I just gotta get to my pages here, I'm sorry. We're on 109.
Just minutes, I was gonna say just minutes, but minutes.
Okay,
Oh, so this is actually, sorry, my apologies, this is the public hearing notes, or the certification.
okay, that the minutes of the public hearing held on Monday, March 9, 2026 be received for information. And just before we do this, I just want us to know that unfortunately, we called this a public hearing, and we should have just called it a community input. Because our legal public hearing is after our first reading. So the legal one for the OCP will be April the 29th. So not that these are not valuable input, but it's not the legal one. So when we do it the next time, the CAO will do minutes differently. People would encourage people, we will encourage people to write in. So it's exactly how they want to say it.
Mhm.
So there's no discrepancy going forward. So if that, I hope that clears up anything. Anybody want to move that?
We're
Move.
just
Councillor
accepting.
McKellar? And Councillor Lynn, second?
Yeah.
Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, now we'll move on to minutes. On this one, there is a correction and it's on page 116. The R20-5-26, instead of 4th Street, should have said 2nd Street.
Catch, my apologies.
Is there any other corrections or anything that you guys saw on that one?
Nope.
Okay, that's the minutes of the regular council meeting, 5/26 of Tuesday, March 10th, as amended, be adopted as presented.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Carried. And now the next one is the special meeting. Is there any corrections on that one?
Nope.
Okay, that the minutes of the special council meeting of Monday, March 16th, 2026 be adopted as presented.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
In
In
favor.
favor.
Carried. Okay, and then the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of Tuesday, March 24th, 2026 be adopted as presented.
I'll move.
I'll second. As
Okay.
we know, I'm not really happy about the notes, so.
Say that again. I didn't hear what you said.
Well, it's just, I think that our minutes could be better. That's all I'm saying. But thank you.
What do you feel something's missing?
Mm, Nothing in
this-
particular. I just wish that we had, I don't know. It just seems short.
Gotcha.
So with the when you say short, let's figure out how we can make it better. How can we make it better?
I would like, and I don't know, I'm pretty sure I talked to the CAO about this, about recording them, but at the gym, I understand that the sound there would probably not really work. It's just, there's so much happening that I feel like these minutes downplay what actually happened there. If you understand what I mean.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, absolutely. I know what you're getting at. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that having, you know, a little bit of, yeah, more notes, and even to the point of, you know, for any participants, having written submissions or anything like that, that would be, absolutely add more context to it for sure. So, I'm not in disagreement at all, with that comment.
The COTW is not the meeting to have public submissions attached to those meetings. That would be to public hearing, unless they've actually written a letter to mayor and council. Then it would go on the business meeting, not the COTW.
Gotcha.
But I think what I'm hearing Councillor Lynn say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that to have maybe bullet points of more of what the discussion was. There's no way we can do verbatim. We would have a 30 pages here, but have more bullet points of the discussion of the council.
Yeah, perhaps like more of our discussion pertaining to, I mean, I know we have kind of the minutes of the COTW already, but we did discuss this kind of at length, so I just feel like it's short. It's not explaining the depths that we talked about it.
No, that's a fair point, and I will, I can absolutely add more bullet points and more discussion, that's, absolutely more topical, for the next ones for sure.
Do you feel that would help, is having more bullet points?
I think it would, yeah. I mean, I understand it's hard to listen, chair the meeting, and write all the notes. Like, it's a lot all at once for one person.
But
so.
this is the COTW, this is not the public hearing. So
Oh, yeah.
the CAO does not chair the meeting.
Right, sorry.
Yeah, so if we could give staff direction of having just more bullet points, I think he's gotten that of what the discussion is. Okay, that's great. Okay, so any more discussion on those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
In favor.
Carried. Okay, so we'll go on to business arising out of the minutes. No, I guess.
Yep.
Let's see, this is so weird. Administrative reports, the CO report, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Just a couple updates. I mean, we had dog night. It was a lot of fun. It was, the community came out in great numbers, compared to last year. And I think it was, a really good, positive, night for the community. So I wanted to thank everybody who, helped with the setup and the takedown and everybody that participated. It was great. It was one of the coolest things about Salmo as far as I'm concerned. So, but thank you, everybody. The ASI engineering, they're here this week. They're going through, all of our buildings. They're about, 2/3 of the way through, actually. They're making, progress. They'll be, leaving either, Thursday or Friday morning, and then they will be compiling a report, within a couple of weeks of that. The floodplain review project is being finalized. They're going to be incorporated in the OCP where it has to be presented to the regional district board. I think they are. What did just did that today?
No, it's not present. We did a workshop
Oh,
today
it's the workshop. Okay.
and it won't be presented until May.
Okay. So that's kind of where that's at. The project is really at the sunset portion of it. There's not much work to do other than just provide information to councils. We completed the rodent control at the two parks at KP and Lines. We didn't proceed with the one at the cemetery just because of the scope and probably the futility of it. We've had an uptick in building permits from this year to last year. We have 7 so far. Last year at this time, we only had 2. So there is a bit of a bump that way. All on the residential side. A couple new homes, but nothing kind of finalized just yet as far as the building permits, but they've submitted their information to us for checks. So that's where that is. It's good news that way. The local community needs project has been done. That's what started out as the 15-minute cities or the growth node project, where it was just different areas where Salmo could expand potentially in the long run. So that's done. That will be presented to the board, RDCK board here this week, and then we'll bring it to council after for your guys' presentation. I will just put this out to you guys. The consultants have offered the potential to present to council if that is necessary or warranted. They've also extended an invitation for council to attend that board meeting just as a observer for that project. But I guess if you'd like to attend that, that's great. If not, we can absolutely bring them in for our own presentation if necessary. But we'll just leave it at that for now.
And you can attend online.
Yeah, sorry. No, that's thank you. The office staff met with our new RCMP corporal at the village office last week. It was great to meet him. Thank you, Mayor Lockwood, for bringing him around. We had discussed about talking to council and all of that, but we'll move through that as we get a little more familiar and he gets settled in a little bit. But seems like a really nice fellow, and I think we have a good corporal here. So the next is we're working through the ambulance residence placement. We're going through and working with the building inspectors and the project manager to get it done. It's looking like it will be happening sometime in the next couple of months as far as the actual move, because their procurement and everything is already completed. So, and then just as a note, I'm away at conference in June, from June 9th to that week for my LGMA conference. We have a council meeting on the Tuesday, which is the first day of the conference. So I don't know if council wanted to suggest to move the day or keep the day and have our deputy corporate officer attend. I would probably just lean towards moving the day just to make it simpler on staff, frankly, but this is up to council at that time. We have a lot of time to discuss this. This wasn't necessarily something that needed to be decided now. I did put it in my report as an additional motion if council felt strongly about it one way or another, but we can absolutely postpone that until, for example, till the other councilors are present or we get closer to the date and it's a little more relevant. But that's that would be it, I guess, as far as my report. So if there's any questions.
Do you have any questions, Councillor Lentz?
My question is back about the rodent control. I know we asked for information concerning that. There was an email sent in and I did get your response, apologizing that we didn't get the information, but I still didn't get information about it. Like, did I miss it somewhere or? I never received an email.
I will look. I'll check my emails. What I had thought I did was I had forwarded the email that we had received from the contractor that had a bit of explanation. So if I didn't do that, then I probably missed. I will have to check my email as far as how I rolled that out. My apologies with that, obviously, but I will look. I just don't have that handy, Councillor Lynn, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go back to the meeting date. If we're going to change that date, we do have to do it at this council meeting, whether we're canceling that date, because it needs to be done in a council meeting. So the 15th is a Monday of June, and it is also the last day that the Sophie report. So that's a statement of the financial information that needs to be done by. So we can't go later in June, but there's always a possibility of going either, as the CEO said, is stay at June 9th and have the deputy CEO, or going to May the 26th, which is the fourth Tuesday. And then not having a council meeting in June. Or that might be pushing it to get the Sophie done. Right?
Yeah, my understanding, talking with the CFO Nathan, that their auditors are planning preliminarily to be here potentially the first week of May. So for their presentation to us. So then
The first meeting in May.
first week of May,
So we're having a special meeting just for them.
potentially. Then it's going to work. It's going to be dependent on the timing of everything. That's going to be where this is. Nathan is just in contact with them, and we're just getting the audit going. So I don't know what their timelines are specifically. If this is something that, because we're pushing the May 14th, and that's the deadline, that is probably why we would need to schedule something additional. But as of right now, it's kind of a preliminary booking, I guess, per se. We don't have any kind of real detail as far as if that's confirmed or not. So as far as timelines, but I know just speaking with Nathan, what he was saying even tonight was that they're just getting kind of going with the auditors. So I don't know what their timelines are looking like for a presentation. So I would just, I guess, keep that in mind, that might be a potential that we would have to do.
So everyone, Sophie is a statement of financial information, has to be done. It has to be to the province by the 15th.
Yes.
June 15th. May 15th has to be to the 5-year financial plan, needs to be to them, to the province. And with the audited report. So 8 years I've asked for this not to happen. And it's still happening, last minute.
Is having the meeting on it's the June 9th, would that be like undue hardship on our staff if the deputy CAO attended that meeting with the soaking being due and everything?
No, I guess it would all depend on if there was any additional, like if there were any additional questions from council that the deputy corporate officer couldn't answer, maybe, but I'm of the opinion that all of that discussion will happen before that, and this is simply kind of a formality. But I'm looking at this as that if we needed to get something in sooner, having it on the 9th would be better than to say pushing it to the 15th, of course.
Supplemental?
I have the full confidence that our deputy CEO could manage our meeting just fine if that works for anyone else.
Councillor McKellar?
I feel the same way, yeah.
Okay, so let's keep it at the 9th. We don't even know what will be on the agenda.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so to be able to say yes or no for the deputy CAO or CO, we don't know, because we don't know what will be on the agenda. And what we'll have to do is, if there's stuff that can't be answered, we may have to have a meeting on the 15th to be able to answer those questions. So the one thing I guess we could do is to make sure, because everything, all information needs to be in by the Monday of that Monday or third, yeah, the new procedure bylaw. Is it Monday?
Yes, Monday, sorry, yes.
So the Monday prior, all the information needs to be in, and what the CAO and I could do is, before he goes to his conference, is to make sure that we go over that agenda and really tighten stuff up.
Mhm.
That hopefully maybe we can get more stuff out to council, to be able to make sure that if you have questions, that they come in through an email to all of council, so the deputy CAO can have that discussion with the CAO to make sure that those questions can be answered. So we need to do our due diligence of questions beforehand. Yes.
If I could just speak to that, yeah. The deputy corporate officer and I already spoke about this. We are going to be working to get the agenda, done way beforehand, as far as to make it a little more stress-free for her, but and also give council enough time to, if we need to shuffle things around, that as well. So we'll be looking, very close to the beginning of or end of May already, like right after that, the May COTW, the deputy corporate officer and I will be working on the next agenda already. So,
Okay, so we'll keep with the 9th. Okay, so that we accept the CAO, the council accept the CAO report for information.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. Okay. Glendale Bridge guardrail replacement.
okay, yeah, so we have gone through the process. WSA Engineering had and myself have put out the tender package on BC bid. We received 9 total submissions. 3 of them met the criteria for the for the submission. So ultimately, the two submissions that met all of the criteria were the Kootenai Precision Mechanical and Custom Dosing Limited. They were the two that came in under budget and then met all of the submission requirements, regarding bid security and that side of it. So the two quotes that were, I guess, under our budget would be for the Kootenai Precision at $169,300 or $132 plus GST. That is the recommendation from WSA Engineering. They have gone through and did vetting of each company. They have phoned around to ensure that the reputations are solid and did that sort of check on top of the normal diligence they do when they search for these companies and approve this work. They also, I guess, I didn't put this in the report, but they also had Redwood Engineering, who had engineered the guardrails, like the actual drawings, help answer any technical questions. So based on that, that's what the goal is. That the tender was put out so that the project would be done by October 31st of this year, and that basically the contractor is responsible for all of it, including any cleanup or anything. It's really the traffic control, all of that is part of the contract and as part of the offer. In this particular, these two offers, both of them allowed for the bridge to stay open with alternating traffic while the work is going on during the day, and then once I think it's 5 or 6 o'clock, they close everything off and open the bridge up for both lanes. So there will be minimum traffic disruption that way. Again, hopefully they will be starting in the summer months without school, so there won't be much. There'll be less traffic around that area. So that's speaking with WSA, that I would follow their recommendation. So that's where I would leave.
Councillor Lenz.
Questions. So between our two bids, there's quite a significant difference. Did anything jump out at you of what that difference might be?
If I want to be it's hard to speak to it because this gets into like contract offering, but what I would say that both of them did their diligence, but if I want to be quite frank, I would say that Custom Dosing was very, very keen on paying attention to us and realized that the budget was $200,000 and bid under it. That said, I know they do great work. They've done great work for us in the past, but that's, if I'm guessing, just because it's a round number and $1,000 under of what the budgeted amount is. That's what I would, I'm not going to say assume, but.
Okay. And do we have any drawing? Like, can we see the drawings and whatever what it's supposed to look like, and is it going to be orange? I have to say that.
Yeah, so what it is that there's not, the design elements are very basic. It is what council was already provided that last fall when we tendered the project originally. It's nothing, anything fancy. They look like steel piles being driven into the, right into the deck. Like they're just, into the concrete. They're not anything, what I would call, anything you could paint or design or anything. They are as basic as you can get them as far as use. But I can absolutely resend that to council for sure.
Is it going to be made out of wood or?
No, steel. No.
Steel. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the requirement. That it was a requirement that they followed Redwood's drawings to the letter. Okay. So that was the plan, but I can absolutely send that to council so that you can get a visual of what's there.
Any more questions? Hearing none, that council select Kootenai Precision Mechanical to construct the Glendale Bridge guardrails.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, any more questions on that? And just so we understand is that our staff did not go through the bids in putting all of this together. We paid another company to do it all. So the engineering company was able to look at those bids very precisely and figure out what is the best recommendation coming forward, so. Okay, hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, that Public Works Department, that council received for information, a written report is presented by Public Works Foreman Fred Patton for the period of February 20th, 2026 to April 9th, 2026. Any questions on that?
None for me.
None? Okay. Counselor, who would like to, you only two are here. What one would like to first and second?
I'll move. I'll second then.
The only thing I want to make comment is the spring cleanup for the month of May, or I'm sorry, May 6th and 7th. But for the whole month of May, you can let residents know that if they miss the village's pickup, that they can take their stuff, their yard and garden waste to the transfer station for, I'm going to use the word free. I don't like using the word free because taxpayers pay for it, but they will not be charged a tipping fee to take up anything extra for the whole month of May. So not only do we have our own Public Works picking up on the 6th and 7th in Salmo, we also have the opportunity to take up extra to the transfer station. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, we'll move on to the fire department that council received for information. A written report stated March 1st, 2026 and April 1st, 2026, provided by Fire Chief David Byrne for the period of February and March 2026.
I'll move. No, I'll second.
Any questions on this?
No.
I have a question and a concern.
Sure.
So at the top, and maybe it's not quite a concern, it's just to make it more consistent. On both reports, one says lift assist and one says assist ambulance. Well, a lift assist is with the ambulance. If we could get it that it's more that it follows each other. And then on that first one is, I'm not understanding why the last paragraph is in the report. And if there's a possibility that there were some concerns regarding the technical billing for the repairs on E6, I'm very concerned that something like that is in a report that is a fire report. So if there can be conversation over that. And the other one is, do we know the training that our Salmo Fire Department, is it under the RDCK or are they just partnering with Weimer and doing it under something else?
Partner.
They're partnering, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I had. Any other questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Okay.
Carried. By law enforcement, that council received the information of the written report on by law enforcement for the period of February and March 2026.
I'll move.
Any questions on it?
Somebody
No.
second. Somebody.
Yeah. All in favor?
In favor.
Okay, and now we'll move on to the strategic plan. Have questions?
Absolutely.
Okay. First of all, do you guys have any questions on the strategic plan? Page 147.
No.
Okay, I'm gonna maybe just start, I'm gonna start at the top. So on the top, we have, the OCP planning grant at the progress of 90%. But then when we go down, we have the official community plan at 40%.
Correct.
So what is the difference between those? What is,
Well, one's just the grant application for the money, and the other one's the actual.
okay, sorry,
No.
grant, I should have picked up on that. Sorry, thank you. The other one, was, why is there no date for the Heritage Mine grant when we have a date in other ones?
I was unable to determine when we started this. Going back to my records, I was not able to pin even a year of when this whole grant and conversation started.
2021.
Okay.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
I want to say it was in another strategic plan, that there was a date.
There might have been an end date.
No start date.
Okay, I will look in that for sure, because.
There is no end date because it's not ended yet.
Correct.
So, okay, what else? And we did talk about the development harmonizing project. My question is did we actually get the funds?
We don't know yet.
We don't know yet. Okay, that's all I had. The council accept the strategic plan for information.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. Okay, the financial plan that council received for information, the treasurer's report for March 2026.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any questions?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor?
In favor.
Okay, and now we'll move on to accounts payable that council received for information, a list of accounts payable, checks and electronic fund transfers from March 6, 2026 to April 9, 2026 totaling $218,000 and $18,048.51.
Move or questions first?
We'll move it and then we'll have any questions.
I'll second.
Okay, Councilman.
Just another comment that we have another $3,600 in sweeper repairs.
Yep, we need a new sweeper. It is breaking down. Our sweeper, I think, is a 1989 model. And I know the gentleman that we bought it from White Rock. He sold it to the village of Salmo that way back then and can't believe that it's still going to this day.
And I will speak to that as well if council is that the sweeper is part of our last asset management plan in 2017, 2016 was due to be replaced in 2023. So it's a bit of a ticking time bomb that way. But this is something where we would pay for the sweeper, and we actually did we not apply for the community development fund to cover this back, so
Yeah.
it won't affect taxes. This is just the out. So
Supplementary, go ahead.
Oh, let me find it here again. Sorry, I lost it. Record management expense. What is that?
So every few years, every about 2 or 3, Brandy has to, or sorry, our deputy and corporate officer has to purchase like records management files that are specially ordered. And that's what that is.
Thank you.
Nobody gonna ask about the fire truck maintenance? Any other questions?
No.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. So there's no new business correspondence requiring a council decision. So this is the Salmo District Hospice Society request for wind phone and a bench at the cemetery, number 16. So you have the letter in front of you. Is there any questions on this? Or with the CO, Councillor Lenz?
I'm just wondering if, because where they want to put it is actually for our, on the boards we put up for the
Memorial wall?
memorial. Yeah. I was just wondering, did anyone get back to them on that when we got the letter?
No, because it's sitting in front of us. Do we want it to happen or not?
Yeah.
And then if we want it to happen, then that conversation will happen with staff of what is the best thing.
Okay.
And if we don't want it to happen, then the conversation won't happen with staff.
Well, I like the idea. I know lots of people use the one behind the library. I don't know where we would put it. That would have to be figured out, but thank you.
Councillor McKellar?
No, nothing from me.
So my, I don't have questions. Because I do believe that part of that is operations of where is the best place, as you spoke about, Councillor Limbs. We don't want to take away from the memorial wall, but maybe it's on the back of the memorial wall. And that will be staff. My biggest concern with anything that anybody, any organization adds is how it will be maintained. Because is it something that the village takes on to maintain it? Or if it's looking ratty or getting broken or anything like that, that it's just removed? Or does the organization itself take care of it? So I do believe that the motion that is in front of us is that council approve the request to place a wind phone and bench in the cemetery in a location determined by staff, with the understanding that the Hospice Society will be responsible for the maintenance of these items.
I'll move.
I'll second.
So my concerns are met with what I have said because of, I had a bunch of writing all over my stuff, so I'm good with it also. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. Okay, so the second request in here is hosting many annual events, including an annual hospice walk. And they begin with hosting bonfires. But we're not having a bonfire in a fire pit. So, and also there's a restriction, and this looks like May 31st. I don't think that we'll have a fire restriction at that time. What does the council direct staff to respond to the request regarding the annual hospice walk and bonfire event? So I would just like to make sure that obviously we're not allowed to have bonfires right inside the municipality of any sort. We have to stay our size of our fires, so I don't know if that's what's happened in the past. I've never attended one. Can you speak to that at all?
Not at all. This is something, I mean, obviously they have, to your point, we do have a limit on our, on what we can have for fires and all of that. As far as how, I don't recall how we managed this in the past, as far as ensuring that that happened. I will look into previous responses to see. I really don't know how we've handled that.
I think that, did we lose Councillor McKellar?
No, he's.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I have
had-
an answer to that.
My phone died on me, so.
Oh, okay. Councillor Lenz?
Shauna just put a note up that it would be a bonfire or a campfire fire, like in a campfire.
In a pit or whatever,
In a
yeah.
fire.
Oh, okay, so it's
Yeah.
just, it's the word bonfire was used just, but it's
Yes.
not an actual bonfire. Okay.
In a fire pit. Thank you.
Okay, that council direct staff to respond to the request regarding the annual hospice walk and.
Oh.
And I'm gonna use fire event. I'm gonna take out bond. Councillor Lenz?
There's also a request for access to the bathrooms. I can't remember when we opened them.
Yeah, but the toilets are open, the bathrooms are
Oh.
open.
Perfect.
Yeah, they're open in April.
Excellent.
I'm
Thank
sure
you.
that's, so I'm gonna take out the word bond in the thing and hospice walk and fire event. Who would like to move that?
I will.
I'll second.
Any more discussion on that? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. Okay, community grant application, World Health Outreach Association. So I just have a comment on our community grant application. It gets cut off. You can't actually read it all.
Okay, yeah.
So, and this, what they put in here doesn't meet up with, like, there's so many different things. Cause it says each box costs approximately $350 to create. But then it says that we're requesting support for the village to help fund 2 dental discovery boxes, but they're asking for $300. So 2 of them would be $700. And then they have on here that the budget estimated cost is $600 for 2. So there's a lot of discrepancy in the whole thing. And the other thing is Area G donating to this also? Because it's not just Salmo kids that go to school, it's also Area G, and I know that it's not at the RDCK, so I feel that my opinion is that we need to have, because it only reaches, it says Village of Salmo request, it doesn't ask, it's looking at tech funding, it's looking at other funding, but there's no Area G. I would like to have staff go back to this organization and ask also Area G before it comes back to us. How do you feel about that, council?
I agree. I have several, I had those same questions. And I can't find in here, where would they be kept?
They don't say, they say, they just, normally libraries, which we do have a lending thing at our library, but they don't say the Salmo library.
Okay,
So,
I couldn't find it. I was just double checking.
yeah, so those are kinds of things that maybe we would like to hear is where will they, like, their due diligence of asking, because if the Salmo Library said no, which I highly doubt that they would, but if they said no, we don't have the capacity to have something like this, then where else would they be going? So, so let's not do that recommendation and direct staff to get more information and ask them to reach out for a grant from Area G also to support all the children that Salmo is, as we see, we're getting hit this year. and we're paying for a lot of stuff that's happening outside of our area. So are you guys okay with getting more information on that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I notice on page 163, is it saying they're getting $250 from tech there?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm fine. They still need to provide us with more information either way, but
yeah, because I do think that that Area G should be contributing to, not just Salmo.
yeah, no, I think that's a good point.
Okay. Now we'll go down to communication that council received for information, the following correspondence from Fortis BC, the Village of Salmo Wildfire Safety Planning updates, the PSPS inclusion. Any questions on this? Is they're gonna do some work, and you see on your paper, on your picture, that all the yellow is where it's gonna affect. It's gonna affect the whole town, but that's the line that they're going on. Apparently, they're not going out the airport road one. Any questions on it?
No.
Okay, who would like to move it?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. Okay, so, any notice of motions? Anybody who wants to put forward? That will go on to reports, Councillor Lenz.
Oh, you're
being
muted.
Nothing for tonight, thanks.
Okay. I did you have the AGM at the library? And, so with that being your portfolio, will you be able to have a report for that?
Yeah, I can. I just, I messed up my report, so I didn't send it in.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Councillor McKellar, do you have anything more for your report?
Nope, nothing more.
Okay. And then mine, so you'll see in my report, obviously the hospital funding one, but the fees and charges for our pool and our fitness center, you'll have those papers for people to be able to, because they are going up a little bit. But our fitness center had increased a lot last year or throughout the winter, but we didn't have a ski hill open. We didn't have a outdoor skating rink. We didn't have a lot of stuff happening throughout the winter. So that's probably why we saw the uptake of usage, which is great. But there's just a little bit more of the rates and stuff like that. Any questions on anybody's reports?
None for me.
Okay, that the verbal and written reports of mayor and council be received for information.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Carried. Okay, and we'll go to public time. And I still cannot see the screen. I'm sorry, our screen is so little, I can't see.
We'll start with Mel.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't tell you if she was even on still. Mel, do you have any questions for us?
To be honest, not really. I was just digging a little into this stuff around the committee for the Canada Day celebration, and I'm just curious, as somebody that had put their hand up for that there's supposed to be a budget that's ready by the 9th of June. I think I'm just trying to find those notes again. Are we going to get any information around that? Like, that's not that many weeks away, and a lot of these people are volunteers with lots of things on their plates. It would be really great to get that ball rolling, considering the expectations that are contained within that outline of the program guide there.
Yeah, for sure, Mel. I absolutely understand that. We were just talking about it a little bit, is that because this is kind of the first crack at it, we're probably going to have to have a little bit of a deeper conversation between council and myself as far as expectations and everything else. This was the report I had put in was just kind of a bit of a draft. And so based on, previous years, but yeah, mine we'll probably have to go back and have a little bit more of a thorough discussion internally before we can bring it to the board. That's how I'll leave that, I guess.
Okay, great. Yeah, sorry, I kind of missed a little bit of that earlier on. But I'm also curious, was there nobody from the Salmo Valley Farmers Market that was also going to be on that working group, because they do deliver the market portion of that?
No, the volunteers that were present were the ones that volunteered, the ones that were on that report. So those were the names that were brought forward. I'm in constant communication with the farmers market, but it's more about the logistics of the requests and everything that are coming in, not so much tied to the working group. But they were emailed at the same time as everybody else that had received it, same time you received it. So we just didn't get a response from the groups that really the four that had put their name forward were the only ones that put their name forward. So
right on. I am also a member of the farmers market board, so I'll check with them. As you know, there was some changeover with leadership in that, so that may have been dropped around that time. But I can potentially wear two hats, although I do think it would be great for the farmers market manager to be involved in that. So I'll try and push that with them and see if they're able to do that. Yeah, we'll go from there.
all right, sounds good.
Thanks.
Andy, do you have any questions? Andy A? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. The one thing that I did forget to mention, that I confirm now, is April the 20th from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. The Chamber of Commerce and the Salmo Museum will be presenting to the two directors, the Salmo director and the Area G director, at the community services meeting. And this is something that council put forward about the policy of the different groups needing to present or at least give information to be able to get their grant in August. So if you're interested as a counselor and you want to attend, it will be online if you're not here, and it's at 6 p.m. And it will be under the RDCK website, not under the Village of Salmo's website. So it will be RDCK staff that are here for that meeting.
Sorry, Diana, when is that?
April the 20th from 6 to 7, and then we have our meeting at 7 o'clock that night.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's that same day.
Right?
Pardon me?
April 20th?
April 20th.
Okay.
And Mel, you're part of the chamber, so I'm thinking that your members all know.
I'm not sure if all of the members know or whether that's more between the chamber manager or not. It certainly wasn't mentioned at the AGM the other day.
Oh, okay. Okay. Alrighty, well, then maybe we will get, I'll figure out how we can get it advertised, so people are aware and can come and hear. It would be great to hear from those two organizations.
I'm sure someone probably, the president or the manager or someone is likely on it. I know that there has been some mention in times gone by, but it wasn't a mention at the recent meeting to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, I'm just meaning that so public is aware, because it is a public meeting. And the office gets questions, and it's a great opportunity for the two organizations to be able to answer. And they're the two organizations that have answered saying that they're coming. So, so it would be good to be able to allow the public to know that too. So it's good. Okay. I'm on the wrong page. We don't have it in camera.
No.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, any other questions from council or from the public? No? Okay, then let's call for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for attending, public, and you guys be safe out on those roads. Have a good night.
Have a good night.